Om. 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 Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyaadilakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavaतीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्यः उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ। समं सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरं विनश्यत् विनश्यत् स्वविनश्यन्तं यः पश्यति स पश्यति समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरं न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो याति परां गतिं प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानम् अकर्तारं स पश्यति यदा भूतपृथग्भावम् एकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारं ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा. Om Tat Sat. So we'll start from verse 24 again and we'll continue. Just give me a minute, I'll be back. Gurudev. ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे. Dhyanena, by contemplation, Atmani, in the mind, Pashyanti Kechit, some see, Atmanam, the self, Atmana, with self, the prepared mind, Anye, others, Sankhyena Yogena, by knowledge, Cha Apare, and others, Karma Yogena, by Karma Yoga. By contemplation in the mind, some see the self with the self, the prepared mind, others by knowledge, and others by Karma Yoga. The means for moksha. Shankara introduces this verse saying that regarding the vision of Atma, Atma Darshane, there are many optional methods, and these are cited here. Shankara's use of the word darshana, vision, is important and deliberate. The context is a dialogue in Brihadaranyaka between Yajnavalkya and his wife Maitreyi. He has decided to distribute his wealth to his two wives and live a life of sannyasa for the purpose of gaining moksha. Maitreyi asked him whether, with all the wealth he was leaving her, she could also gain moksha. And he responded that there was no hope of getting moksha by wealth. Then she asked him for the means for moksha. This we've actually done, but we're going to do a little repeat so that we get back into the context. Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. First, he makes her understand That love for anything is for one's own sake, which was what? Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. And finally, it is the self that is the most beloved. Therefore, he tells her, indeed, my dear, Atma has to be seen. Atma va are drashtavya. Drashtavya, it has to be seen, means it has to be known clearly as if it were seen. For that, what should be done? How am I to see myself? Since any known means of knowledge is inappropriate to know oneself, the knower, Yajnavalkya says, indeed, my dear, Atma has to be listened to. Atma va are shrotavyaha. Listening in the context is inquiry into the Vedanta Shastra with the help of a teacher. Since I am here already, Atma cannot be gained unless it is in terms of knowledge, and therefore this pramana is necessary. After listening, there can be doubts put forth by my own intellect or by others. Buddhist will say that Atma is Shunya, and I have to see for myself very intimately how that is wrong. Otherwise, it is my doubt also. Anything that is said against the vision of the Shruti, which I have to come to understand by proper Shravana, has to be very closely analyzed and met with. Therefore, Yajnavalkya says, indeed, my dear, the self is to be reflected upon. Atma va are mantavyaha. Then, even if everything is very clearly understood, the orientation that one is the body can still remain. This has been there for countless births, so that even though I know I am not the body, being hostage to the past, the orientation does not immediately get corrected. This knowledge is what we call knowledge with obstructions. Sapratibandhaka jnana. Therefore, I have to contemplate upon this pratyagatma that was unfolded by the Shastra. Yajnavalkya says, indeed, my dear, the self is to be contemplated upon. Atma va are nididhyasitavyaha. It has to be done purely for the sake of removal of obstructions. How long? How do you know when to stop eating? This is the same. It will stop itself. You need not exercise your will to stop it. So, Atma va are drashtavyah, Atma va are श्रोतव्यः आत्मा वा अरे मंतव्यः आत्मा वा अरे निदिध्यासितव्यः. So these are the steps that Yajnavalkya gives Maitreyi when she asks what are the means for moksha. Some people require nididhyasana. This is the contemplation that is talked of in this verse when he says, by contemplation some see the self. Dhyanena pashyanti kechid atmanam. Again, the word see, pashyanti, is used. Contemplation is specifically mentioned here because it is very rare for a mumukshu not to require it. Every person has obstructions to knowledge, and the majority have to spend time in contemplation upon Pratyagatma being Satchid Anandam Brahma. Shankara describes Nididhyasana here as resolving the sense organs from the sense objects into the mind and the mind into Pratyagatma, which is nothing but consciousness, and dwelling upon that with a single pointedness. That is dhyana. As an illustration of how it is to be done, he says that one should meditate without moving from that which is contemplated upon, just as a crane with its beak in the water waiting for something to move, or like the mountains on the earth standing motionless seem to meditate. I will repeat what Shankara has said. So, every contemplation is specifically mentioned here because it is very rare for a mumukshu not to require it. Every person has obstructions to knowledge, and the majority have to spend time in contemplation upon Pratyagatma being Satchidanandam Brahma. So, what are these obstructions to knowledge? The orientation that we have towards the body, that I am the body, mind, senses, and this that we have kept for from the several thousands of past lives that we've gone through. Shankara describes Nididhyasana here as resolving the sense organs from the sense objects into the mind. So, this is much like Pratyahara, and the mind into Pratyagatma, which is nothing but consciousness, and dwelling upon that with a single pointedness. So, there is Dharana, Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana, and that is Dhyana. As an illustration of how it is to be done, he says that one should meditate without moving from that which is contemplated upon, just as a crane with its beak in the water waiting for something to move, or like the mountains on the earth standing motionless seems to meditate. Dwelling upon Pratyagatma can be twofold. As you see any object, either perceptually or in your mind, you turn your attention towards Pratyagatma, who is Sakshi. This is Drishya Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. Then you bring in words that are true to the nature of Pratyagatma, like Chaitanya, Purna, and see how meaningful they are for you. This is Shabda Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. How can I be Purna? If I am the body or a thought, I cannot be Purna. In order to meditate upon Atma, you first have to know what Atma is, and that knowledge is gained from the Shastra. Meditation will not reveal Atma because the meditator is Atma, and therefore, whatever you know about yourself will be the Atma that is meditated upon. So, Shravana is not an option here at all. Because of that alone, these words are meaningful. We meditate purely for the removal of obstructions to our clear understanding of Shastra, and therefore it is a part of Shravana. The dhyana mentioned here is not upasana or prayer. That is something entirely different and is meant for gaining a steadiness of mind and a certain grace. Because Bhagavan has said, they see the self by the self. Prepared mind, Atmana Atmanam Pashyanti. Dhyana here is Nididhyasana. So I'm reading this again. The dwelling upon Pratyagatma can be twofold. So basically, the Nididhyasana is twofold. That is, you either see, as you see any object, either perceptually or in your mind, you turn your attention towards Pratyagatma, who is the Sakshi. This is Drishya Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. Then you bring in words that are true to the nature of Pratyagatma.
Jai Gurudev, Dr. Brahmra, can you explain the Pratyagatma?
Pratyagatma is the Atma that is obtaining in the Jiva. That is an individual jivas. There is Brahma, but Brahma's reflection, or he is there when it's confined to the body, that becomes the Pratyagatma.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Like each of us has a Pratyagatma, although Pratyagatma in you, me, everybody is the same. But that is confined to the body, mind, senses. That is the Pratyagatma.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
So the first step is to see, like you see any object, you perceptually turn your attention towards the witness. That is the Drishya Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. Then you bring in words that are true to the nature of Pratyagatma, that like Chaitanya, Purna, and see how meaningful they are for you. This is the Shabda Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. How can I be Purna? If I am the body or a thought, I cannot be Purna. In order to meditate upon Atma, you first have to know what Atma is. And that knowledge is gained from the Shastra. Therefore, the Shravana becomes important. Isn't it? So, from Shravana, that is through a teacher, you go to the Shastra. The words describing the Atma, that becomes the Shabda Anuviddha Savikalpa Dhyana. Then meditation will not reveal Atma because the meditator is Atma. And therefore, whatever you know about yourself will be the Atma that is meditated upon. So, Shravana is not an option here at all. Because of that alone, these words are meaningful. We meditate purely for the removal of obstructions to our clear understanding of Shastra, and therefore it is a part of Shravana. The dhyana mentioned here is not upasana or prayer. That is something entirely different and is meant for gaining a steadiness of mind and a certain grace. Because Bhagavan has said, they see the self by the self prepared mind. Atmana Atmanam Pashyanti. Dhyana here is Nididhyasana. If dhyana is taken as Saguna Brahma Upasana, then Shankara says it is like the flow of oil. As a ribbon of oil consistently flows from one vessel to the other, so too in dhyana there is the consistent, undisturbed flow of the same vritti or vrittis that belong to the same species, Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha. This can be japa or any type of meditation upon Ishvara. This is also dhyana and can precede nididhyasana if necessary in order to steady the mind. Along with this, he continues to do shravana. So, sajatiya vritti pravaha. That is a manasa vyapara. That is a saguna brahma upasana. That is like a ribbon of oil is consistently flowing when you're pouring it from one vessel to the other. Similarly, you remain with that consistent, undisturbed flow of the same vritti or vrittis that belong to the same species. I'm just reminded of the um, Brahmajnana Valimala. All of them, all the shlokas there are only talking of the same, of Atma, of how it is asanga, asanga, asanga. So that could be one such undisturbed flow of the same vritti, as also japa. Atmani means in the buddhi. There they see the Purna Atma, which means they recognize Atma as being Purna. By seeing one by one that it is free from any particular limitation, like being a seer, hearer, thinker, etc., free from all doership, enjoyership, etc., and is pure existence, pure consciousness, and limitlessness, they see the Purna Atma. All this they see as it was taught with a mind, Atmana, that is well prepared. Atma is not an object of the buddhi by its very nature, and therefore cannot be seen as we literally understand it. All you have to do is negate all the notions about the Atma and recognize the implied meaning, lakshyartha, of the words revealing the nature of Atma. Thereby, the notions of being limited, happy, sad, etc. are negated. In contemplation, we bring in the opposite of these notions until they finally drop off. If one is ready, only vichara is required. If one is ready, only inquiry, vichara is required. Thus, Bhagavan says, some see the self by knowledge. Atmanam pashyanti. Kechid sankhena yogena. By Shravana alone, they know the reality of Purusha and Prakriti and are liberated by that knowledge. They have no other problem. Since Karma Yoga is mentioned separately in this verse, we have to understand these people as sannyasis or qualified people who do not have any obstruction in gaining this knowledge. That means there is discriminating capacity, viveka, dispassion or objectivity, vairagya, and all the other qualifications like shama, dama, etc. Then you have an ideal situation for gaining this knowledge. All you have to do is Shravana. Shankara says such a person sees the self as eternal, distinct from the properties of the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and in the form of a witness of their karya. When he begins to yawn, he sees it has an effect of tamas. When he is agitated, that is rajas. And when he is very appreciative or contemplative, it is sattva. Since these are seen by him, it is clear that he is distinct from all of them. Atma does not yawn, much less does it get agitated or become quiet. It is always quiet. In fact, it is free from any change. All the three gunas are seen expressing as qualities of the antahkarana. Not only that, they account for the entire creation. The five gross elements, Panchabhutas, are born of the tamas, of the subtle elements, which is why they are inert, jada. The organs of action and the prana are born of rajas, and organs of perception, jnanendriyas, and antahkarana are born of sattva. Then there are different vrittis brought about by these gunas. Atma is the witness of all these various products of the gunas, which amounts to the entire creation. And it is nitya, which means it does not come into being. Atma Chaitanya is always a witness, sakshi, with reference to something to be witnessed in and of itself. It is of the nature of pure consciousness. And being distinct from all the gunas, they do not bind him at all. This Viveka is called Sankhya. Remember, yesterday in Tattva Bodh we learned how um, Ishvara, which is um, along with Maya, that is Ishvara. Brahma along with Maya is Ishvara. So that is predominantly sattva guna, is all knowledge, and therefore it is not bound. That Maya is not bound by, he's not bound by Maya. He's actually Maya Pati. Whereas the Jiva who is bound by avidya is Maya Dasa. So he's free from all the gunas. He's gunatita. Whereas we are bound by the gunas. So that Atma that he's talking of is is Nitya, is always a witness, Sakshi, and is of the nature of pure consciousness. And distinct from all the gunas, they do not bind him at all. This Viveka is called Sankhya. Since the next one is Karma Yoga, this one and the one who must also do contemplation, Nididhyasana, should be taken as sannyasis. They have nothing else to do but Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Among them are those who have obstructions and those who do not. Those who have a strong orientation of being the body have to eliminate that obstruction in order to recognize this clearly, and therefore they do nididhyasana. Those who do not need only enquiry, shravana and manana. So, what he's saying here is that there is one group of people who just need to do shravana and then they get liberated. They are enough prepared in their mind. So all they need is just the Shabda Pramana and then they get liberated. And then there are the Karma Yogis. For this and and the this and the one who must also do contemplation, Nididhyasana, should be taken as sannyasis. And of the sannyasis, there are two. One who have obstructions and therefore they need to do Nididhyasana, and those that who do not. Those who have a strong orientation of being the body have to eliminate that obstruction in order to recognize this clearly, and therefore they do nididhyasana. Those who do not need only inquiry, shravana and manana. Some require karma yoga. Then there are those who require antakarana shuddhi, and for that the means is karma yoga. They may also be doing Shravana and Manana, but in addition, they continue to perform karma, offering all their actions and the results of the actions to the Lord. How can Karma Yoga be the means for seeing the Atma? It helps to prepare the mind so that in time they will see. Karma Yoga is not an alternative path. Those who do Karma Yoga also have to pursue knowledge. They must be always this that must be always emphasized. Their karma is an offering to Ishvara because it is not motivated by their own likes and dislikes, but by the situation. Then, when the results come, they are received as coming from Ishvara. Thus, likes and dislikes get neutralized, and with their obstructions removed, knowledge takes place. Both the sannyasi and the karma yogi have to understand the Shastra's vision of Atma, and both suffer from the orientation of being the body, which is the opposite of what they have understood. Viparita bhavana. Therefore, there is no option in Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. So, what the sannyasi and the karma yogi have learned from the Shastra is that they are not the body. They are not the mind, sense organs, sense objects, senses. So, but what they suffer from is the orientation. They feel, they experience that they are the body. So, that is an obstruction. and that is the Viparita Bhavana. So, therefore, they require Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. The object of seeing Darshana is Atma, whose nature is Satchit Anandam Brahma. This can only be seen in the intellect as the content of every thought. As in all the notes of a flute, the sound of the flute is recognized. Similarly, in every vritti, you recognize Paramatma. Because he says Desi, Pashyanti, it implies that Paramatma itself is recognized by a vritti. But it is not like the vritti with which a pot, etc., is recognized. This vritti itself has no form. It is the akhanda akara vritti. And thus, the content of this vritti can assume any form. Consciousness is present in every cognition. And if you see that this limitless consciousness is I, that recognition eliminates all the limitations from consciousness. Having destroyed the ignorance with reference to Atma Chaitanya being limitlessness, that vritti also goes away. I will read this para again, actually, the last two. So, both the sannyasi and karma yogi have to understand the Shastra's vision of Atma, and both suffer from the orientation of being the body, which is the opposite of what they have understood. Viparita Bhavana. Therefore, there is no option in Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. The object of seeing, Darshana, is Atma, whose nature is Satchit Anandam Brahma. This can only be seen in the intellect as the content of every thought. As in all the notes of a flute, the sound of the flute is recognized. Similarly, in every vritti, you recognize Paramatma. Because he says Desi, Pashyanti, it implies that Paramatma itself is recognized by a vritti. But it is not like the vritti with which a pot, etc., is recognized. This vritti itself has no form. It is the akhanda akara vritti. And thus the content of this vritti can assume any form. Consciousness is present in every cognition. And if you see that this limitless consciousness is I, that recognition eliminates all the limitations from consciousness. Having destroyed the ignorance with reference to Atma Chaitanya being limitlessness, that vritti also goes away. Consciousness is present in every cognition. And if you see that this limitless consciousness is I, that recognition eliminates all the limitations from consciousness. Having destroyed the ignorance with reference to Atma Chaitanya being limitlessness, that vritti also goes away. Those who do just what they are told, Shruti Parayana, then there are others who have no viveka. They do not know what is Atma and Anatma. And when you try to teach them, they do not understand. Yet they want moksha. For them, we advise various disciplines to prepare the mind. Those who follow such advice are called Shruti Parayanas, those whose commitment is to what they have been told. The teacher who gives the advice may be a great Vedanti, but if he finds the student does not have adequate intellectual discipline to understand the Shastra, he will advise him to study grammar or logic and then teach him later. Or he may require some upasana or ashtanga yoga to steady his mind. This is told in the following verse. अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्यः उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः. अन्ये tu, but others, evam ajanantah, not knowing in this manner, anyebhyah shrutva, having heard from others, that is their teachers, upasate, follow, te apicha, and they also, shruti parayanah, who are committed to what they have heard, mrityum, death, atitaranti eva, indeed cross. अन्ये तु एवम् अजानन्तः अन्येभ्यः श्रुत्वा उपासते ते अपि च श्रुतिपरायणाः मृत्युम् अतितरन्ति एव. But others, not knowing in this manner, having heard from others, their teachers, being committed to what they have heard, follow, and indeed they also cross death. Two is to distinguish this type from the three that were mentioned in the previous verse. Who are the three? The one is the,
Please read the previous line, please.
yeah. So, but others, not knowing in this manner, having heard from others, their teachers, being committed to what they have heard, follow, and indeed they also cross death. Two is to distinguish this type from the three that were mentioned in the previous verse. So, who are those three? The one that just requires Shravana to get liberated because he is enough prepared. The second is the Karma Yogi and then the Sannyasis. Karma Yogis, they have to still prepare the mind. They have to develop that Antakarana Shuddhi and do Saguna Brahma Upasana to get that Antakarana Naishchalya. Whereas the Sannyasis are those that you do just purely Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. And of them, there are those that have obstructions and those that do not have obstructions. Those that do not have obstructions, again, they just do Shravana, Manana, and then they're liberated. But the sannyasis who have obstructions, like I am the body, they still have those. Then they have to do Nididhyasana. So those are the three that were talked of. But then this group, the Shruti Parayanas, are those that do not have Viveka, but they still want moksha. Therefore, they listen, they follow the teachers, the words of the teacher. They may be karma yogis or even sannyasis, but the pursuit of knowledge is not possible for them. Since the pursuit of knowledge is necessary, how should you advise them in order to make them qualified to do vichara? If they do not have the type of mind capable of inquiring into Atma and Anatma, they are advised to follow what they have heard from their teachers. Here, what they have heard should be taken as the advice of the teacher. Often, the advice may not seem to have any connection with Atma Jnana. If he or she is asked to do a asana daily, that may keep the body fit. But how, one may wonder, is it going to help the person in listening to Shastra? Or if one is put on a diet or sent on a pilgrimage or asked to do puja or japa or upasana, what has that got to do with Atma Jnana? Generally, the seekers are advised to do Gayatri, Purash, Purascharana, Purascharana, which is repetition of the Gayatri mantra 1 lakh times, the number of syllables in the mantra. In the Gayatri mantra, there are 24 syllables, and thus they repeat it 24 lakh times. Chanting daily 4 to 5 hours, one can complete it in 2 or 3 years. Though the connection between this and Atma Jnana is not obvious, they do it because they are committed to what they have heard from their teachers, Shruti Parayanaha. In time, they acquire the necessary mental discipline and the teacher begins teaching. Gaining knowledge, they also cross death, gain moksha. Because he has used the word also, it implies how much more efficacious this is for those who have no obstacles. These are the discriminative ones who have no hindrance at all in understanding the pramana. This connects to what he said in the beginning. I will teach you what is to be known, knowing which you will gain immortality. Gneyam yattat pravakshyami yat jnatva amritamashnute. The knowledge that the Kshetrajna Atma is in reality Parameshvara releases you from death and therefore from birth. In other words, from samsara. So I will just read this again. So who are those people, Shruti Parayanas, that Bhagavan is mentioning here? They are the ones who do not have viveka, vichara. But they are still committed to following what their teachers, what they heard from their teachers. Therefore, they are Shruti Parayanas. They want moksha, but they're still not exposed to the knowledge. They're not ready for the knowledge. So, therefore, what does the teacher do? He makes them do based on their level of preparation. He makes them do either japa, puja, or just some asanas, or just the particular diet. So, two here is to distinguish this type from the three that were mentioned in the previous verse. They may be karma yogis or even sannyasis, but the pursuit of knowledge is not possible for them. Since the pursuit of knowledge is necessary, how should you advise them in order to make them qualified to do vichara? If they do not have the type of mind capable of inquiring into Atma and Anatma, they are advised to follow what they have heard from their teachers. Here, what they have heard should be taken as the advice of the teacher. Often, the advice may not seem to have any connection with Atma Jnana. That is why a teacher is required, because he knows the preparedness of the student. He knows what level the student is, and therefore he advises what he has to start with. If he or she is asked to do particular asana daily, that may keep the body fit, but how, one may wonder, is it going to help the person in listening to Shastra? Or if one is put on a diet, or sent on a pilgrimage, or asked to do puja, or japa, or upasana, what has that got to do with Atmajnana? Generally, the seekers are advised to do Gayatri Purascharana, which is repetition of the Gayatri mantra 1 lakh times the number of syllables in the mantra. In the Gayatri mantra, there are 24 syllables, and thus they repeat it 24 lakh times. Chanting daily 4 to 5 hours, one can complete it in 2 or 3 years. Though the connection between this and Atma Jnana is not obvious, they do it because they are committed to what they have heard from their teachers, Shruti Parayanaha. In time, they acquire the necessary mental discipline and the teacher begins teaching. Gaining knowledge, they also cross death, gain moksha. Because he has used the word also, it implies how much more efficacious this is for those who have no obstacles. These are the discriminative ones who have no hindrance at all in understanding the pramana. This connects to what he said in the beginning. I will teach you what is to be known, knowing which you will gain immortality. Jneyam yattat pravakshyami yat jnatva amritamashnute. The knowledge that the Kshetrajna Atma is indeed, in reality, Parameshvara, releases you from death and therefore from birth. In other words, from samsara. How is that possible? By knowledge, some would argue you can get bound. Before knowing something, you would not have had a desire for it. But once you come to know something very desirable, you can get completely obsessed by it. The argument is that knowledge is binding because it creates desires in you. Once you have desires, you have to fulfill them. And in trying to fulfill them, there are always obstructions. To remove them, you may go against dharma and incur papa, the results of which have to be experienced. Therefore, how do you get liberated by knowledge? Knowledge is the basis for desire, and desire is the cause for the action, for which you must reap the result. This is the Purva Pakshi talking of. How is how is that just by knowing that knowledge of that which is to be known, how is one liberated? So there is an objection raised here. By knowledge, some would argue, you can get bound. How is that you can get bound? What is their line of argument? Is before knowing something, you would not have had a desire for it. But once you come to know something very desirable, you can get completely obsessed by it. The argument is that knowledge is binding because it creates desires in you. Once you have desires, you have to fulfill them. And in trying to fulfill them, there are always obstructions. To remove them, you may go against dharma and incur papa. The results have to be experienced. Therefore, how do you get liberated by knowledge? Knowledge is the basis for desire, and desire is the cause for the action, for which you must reap the result. So all this whole paragraph is the Purva Pakshi raising the obstruction. The next verse is to show the reason why, by the knowledge of the identity of Kshetrajna and Ishvara, one gains moksha. Yavat sanjayate kinchit satvam sthavara jangamam kshetra kshetrajna samyogat tadvidhi bharatarshapha. Yavat, as long as kinchit sattvam, any existent thing, sthavara jangamam, mobile or immobile, sanjayate, is born, tat vidhi, that may you know, kshetra kshetrajna samyogat, because of the connection between the kshetra and the kshetrajna, bharatarshabha, Arjuna, foremost of the Bharatas. Yavat kinchit sattvam sthavara jangamam sanjayate tat vidhi kshetra kshetrajna samyogat bharatarshabha. As long as any existent thing, mobile or immobile, is born, that, may you know, Arjuna, is because of the connection between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. As long as something that exists, whether mobile or immobile, is born, understand that birth is because of the connection between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. The separation, viyoga, between the kshetra and kshetrajna is what is called moksha. How does this connection take place? The kshetrajna is Atma and the kshetra is Anatma. What kind of association is possible between Atma and Anatma? We saw in the Tattva Bodh how this connection happens, right? From the power of Maya. So let's see what we'll read further. Samyoga between Kshetra and Kshetrajna is not possible. The Kshetrajna is partless and not available for any change. Shankara says it cannot be an association like that between a rope and a pot, both of which have a definite form and have parts. A rope has two ends, which you can tie to the neck of the pot and thus bring them together. This kind of samyoga is not possible between the kshetra and the kshetrajna, which is part of the kshetrajna, which is pure formless consciousness. Will you connect to the kshetra? Sorry, let me read this again. So, Shankara says it cannot be an association like that between a rope and a pot, both of which have a definite form and have parts. A rope has two ends, which you can tie to the neck of the pot and thus bring them together. This kind of samyoga is not possible between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. Which part of the kshetrajna, which is pure formless consciousness, will you connect to the kshetra? It would be like trying to attach space to an object. It cannot be done because it is free from parts. This kind of association of two different objects, each having its own features, is not possible for kshetra and kshetrajna. Nor can we say that there is an association like that between the cloth and the threads, because the cloth is the thread. Similarly, there is no association between kshetra and kshetrajna because essentially they are not two different things. Nor does the kshetrajna undergo a change to become the kshetra because it is not available for any change. If consciousness is blue, slowly it can turn into grey, but consciousness is formless and thus has no features that it can change. The kshetra is the object of knowledge and kshetrajna is the subject. The apparent association is one of superimposition. Further, kshetra is an object of your knowledge and is inert, and the kshetrajna is the subject, Atma, which is pure consciousness. Between them, there is no possibility of a connection because, as Shankara had said elsewhere, they are opposite in nature, like light and darkness. Yet, one is mistaken for the other, and the properties of one are mistaken for the properties of the other. The kshetrajna and its nature are taken as the body, and the attributes of the body are taken for the kshetrajna Atma. This apparent association is one of superimposition, adhyasa, due to avidya. It is purely a false cognition. When you say I am, meaning the body, the existence and consciousness of the body belong to Atma. Then again, when you say I am fat, etc., the properties of the body are superimposed upon Atma. This is all due to adhyasa, the cause of which is the absence of discrimination between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. That establishes the connection immediately. If there is no discriminative knowledge of an oyster shell, it is mistaken for a piece of silver. Similarly, a rope is mistaken for a snake. Two different objects, the rope and snake, have seemingly become one. How? By a connection due only to superimposition. Similarly, the association of kshetra and kshetrajna is in the form of adhyasa, superimposition, characterized by false knowledge. It is born of ignorance. This is exactly what we saw yesterday, day before yesterday, in the Tattva Bodh. How the world is created, the universe is born because of the power of Maya, the Vikshepa and the Avarana Shakti of Maya, right? So, therefore, it is only a superimposition. The truth is what is the cause of the whole creation. The truth is Paramatma, Atma. And the world, the Jagat, Samsara is just a superimposition on Atma. It is only Adhyasa. And that is the association. There cannot be a true association because the Atma is something that does not change. With the help of the Shastra, one separates the Kshetra from the Kshetrajna. The Shastra reveals the nature of the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, and with this knowledge, one is separated from the other. Previously, it was pointed out that the kshetra is the body, the five elements, the ahankara, the organs of action, the sense objects, desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, and so on. Anything other than the kshetrajna atma is called kshetra. With the help of the shastra, one separates kshetrajna from the kshetra, like one separates the stalk from the sharp-edged munja grass with alertness and care. In any object, one component is kshetra, another is kshetrajna. The name and form of the object are kshetra, while its existence is kshetrajna. In the mind also, the vritti aspect is the kshetra, and consciousness is myself, the kshetrajna, upon which the vritti is superimposed. Every moment, the kshetrajna and the kshetra are together and available, and therefore have to be carefully separated. Kshetrajna has to be recognized as Brahman, which is free from all the attributes of the Upadhi and which was said to be neither an existent thing nor a non existent thing, but the basis of all concepts of existence and non existence. The one who recognizes this fact also recognizes that the kshetra is born of Maya and has no real existence. Like a wooden elephant, Shankara says. This is a famous example to illustrate Maya. While walking in the forest, a student saw a large elephant and cried out to his guru, who was with him, expecting the guru to stop. But the guru kept walking and walked right up to the elephant and started stroking it. Then the guru called to the student also to approach the elephant. Out of Shraddha, he went towards the elephant and upon coming near it, discovered that it was made of wood. In the knowledge of wood, the elephant disappeared. This is mithya. An object seen in the dream or a city that you see in the clouds is also mithya. Once you see the truth of it, it ceases to exist as a reality. It is not independently existent. If you analyze the physical body, it reduces from one thing to another and finally just melts away in your understanding until all that is there is consciousness. The whole creation is the same. It has its being and consciousness, the Sad Vastu alone. When you see the creation, the Sad Vastu, the Kshetrajna is there. But in the Kshetrajna, there is no creation. For a person for whom this is very well ascertained, false knowledge, being opposed to this clear vision, goes away. He does not have the confusion of the Kshetra being Kshetrajna and the Kshetrajna being Kshetra, and therefore the cause for birth, which is the connection between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, is gone. It was said before that the one who knows what is Purusha and what is Prakriti, along with its gunas, is not born again. Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunaihi saha nasa bhuyo pijayate. He knows that Purusha is Param Brahma. Everything is superimposed upon the Purusha, which is Kshetrajna, and there is no real connection whatsoever between it and the Kshetra. The Kshetra being Mithya, while the Kshetrajna is Satya. For the person for whom this is very clear, the cause for birth, which is false knowledge, is gone. He is released. Because the cause for samsara is the association, samyoga, between the kshetra and kshetrajna, the release from samsara requires their disassociation, viyoga. Death cannot accomplish this because in death, you are released only from one aspect of the kshetra, your physical body. There is no dissociation from the subtle body, and therefore there will be rebirth. The dissociation of the kshetra and the kshetrajna takes place only by the clear knowledge of kshetrajna and kshetra. The result of this knowledge is the removal of ignorance, and because false knowledge produced by that ignorance also goes, when its cause goes, samsara goes away. This is moksha. The vision of the person who has this knowledge is unfolded in the following verse. I think we'll stop here. Let me know if you want me to repeat any paragraph, any part of this. I think we'll stop here and do Manana. So we started from verse 24 today. I'll just go through those verses again. We came down to verse 26, so 3 verses. ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे. By contemplation in the mind, some see the self with the self, the prepared mind, others by knowledge, and others by karma yoga. अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्यः उपासते तेऽपि चापितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः. But others, not knowing in this manner, having heard from others, their teachers, being committed to what they have heard, follow, and indeed they also cross death. यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभा. As long as any existent thing, mobile or immobile, is born, that, may you know, Arjuna, is because of the connection between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. Yeah, I think we'll close our eyes here and then reflect on all that we've listened to and understood. And let's come up with our sharing. So everything is falling in place, right? So dhyane atmani pashyanti. There are some who get this, the vision of the Atma, recognize Atma through contemplation, nididhyasana. For some, just shravana is required because they're already enough prepared. Then there are those who are karma yogis, who, while living their life of karma yoga, also pursue knowledge. And then the two kinds of sannyasis, those that have obstructions, those that do not have obstructions. So these are the three types that were talked of in verse 24. So those sannyasis who still have obstructions to their knowledge, that sab pratibandhika jnana, they have to do nididhyasana to remove those obstructions. Whereas for those who do not have that, they don't have any orientation, their obstructions are not there, then they, by just listening to the Shastra Pramana, they get liberated. Then there are the Shruti Parayanas. Then there are others who want moksha, but they are not ready for knowledge, or they are not still exposed to knowledge. They're listening to the words of their teachers. They're following them to the T. They're committed. But the teacher knows that they are not still ready. So they give them some upayas, some things to do. It could be just Ashtanga yoga, or just japa, or just following a particular diet. So basically, the teacher knows the level of preparedness of the student, and therefore, once they have enough mental discipline, then the the teaching is there. The teacher exposes them to the teaching. So even they will get liberated eventually, but the last straw is always knowledge, whether it is karma yoga, whether it is sannyasa or shruti parayanas. Ultimately, liberation comes only through the knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of the kshetrajna as against the kshetra. So, the difference between the kshetrajna, the atma and atma, when that vichara is so clear, that is when knowledge takes place. So, we know that as a concept, but we have that as a viprita bhavana. So, in order to remove that, shravana, manana, and nididhyasana are important. And with that akhanda akara vritti, when you're doing nididhyasana, ultimately that will dissolve into the pure consciousness. The vritti also disappears, and then you just merge with that pure consciousness. So that
Jai
vyoga.
Gurudev, Dr. Brahma, I didn't follow this akhand akara vritti, is it that vritti which we are born with? Like it is, we have some type of vritti. So, or is it?
I think I think that akhanda akara vritti is what you get from the Shastra. If you remember,
Okay. And
he had
why is
mentioned,
it that it can assume any form, the content of this vritti?
yeah, because see, for instance, you're contemplating on Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma. So that's a vritti, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but as you keep contemplating on that, as you're doing dhyana, like that uninterrupted flow of oil, you're just thinking of, so what? Satya, what is Satya? It doesn't have any form, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you require that. See, that it is Satyam. That part has a form, but that therefore it is a vritti. But vritti ultimately will dissolve as you keep as you keep meditating, which is what is mentioned.
Though, so this akhand akara vritti will get dissolved
Yeah, it will also get
in the end.
dissolved.
Okay.
See,
This is same as Guruji telling, think big. Akhanda akara means the form to be infinite, very big.
I just want to go back to that that thing
Akhanda
where
akara means the infinite form, not the form. It's infinite. We cannot see that.
It's 525 page.
yeah, see,
525.
this is the one. So there are two types of dwelling upon the pratyagatma. One is that you see that as an object, that is, you turn your attention towards pratyagatma, who is the sakshi. This is the drishya anuvidya savikalpa dhyana. Then you bring in words that are true to the nature of pratyagatma, like Chaitanya, Purna, etc. This is the Shabda Anuvidya Savikalpa Dhyana. So for this, is this where that Akhanda Akara Vritti is?
We say no akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam.
Yeah,
Like a canopy, see everywhere when we look up, more and more up above, when we go on the top of our building and just look up above, there is nothing, just light blue sky, and it is covered infinitely everywhere up to the wherever your eyes can reach out. So like a canopy, it is covering the whole infinite thing. So something much more than this, like akhand mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tat padam darshitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. So I think by contemplating on this akhanda mandalakar will become more and more clear. Hey, Gurudev.
yeah, yeah, very true. So here, what he says, so there are two types, no, that Drishya Anuvidya Savikalpa Dhyana and Shabda Anuvidya Savikalpa Dhyana, right? So using that Shabda, both sannyasi and karma yogi have to understand the Shastra's vision of Atma. Both suffer from orientation of being the body, which is the opposite of what they have understood. So through the Shastra, they know that Atma Anatma Vichara is there, but they still have the orientation. I am the body, that obstruction is still there. Therefore, there is no option in Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. They have to do that. Those three steps have to be followed. The object of seeing, Darshana, is Atma, whose nature is Satchidanandam Brahma. This can only be seen in the intellect as the content of every thought. As in all the notes of a flute, the sound of the flute is recognized. Similarly, in every vritti, you recognize Paramatma. isn't it? So every vritti, like every wave, comes from the ocean. Like the ocean is the substratum, and every wave is is uh, has the ocean in it. Similarly, every vritti has consciousness in it, or consciousness pervades every vritti. So, because he says they see Pashyanti, it implies that Paramatma itself is recognized by a vritti. But it is not like the vritti with which a pot, etc., is recognized. See, when you say this is a pot, it's a vritti, no doubt, but it is apart from you. But this vritti, akhandakara vritti, itself has no form, and thus the content of this vritti can assume any form. Consciousness is present in every cognition. And if you see that this limitless consciousness is I, that recognition eliminates all the limitations from consciousness. Having destroyed the ignorance with reference to Atma Chaitanya being limitlessness, that vritti also goes away. See, I think akhandakara vritti could be like aham brahmasmi, could be an akhandakara vritti. Tattvamasi. So all those that we learned in Brahma Jnana Vali Mala, all that asanga, all those things are part of this akhandakara vritti. Atma is Satchidananda, all of them, right? So that can assume any form. It has no form, but it can assume any form. And when you hold on to that and you meditate upon that, ultimately even that dissolves. And when you realize what he says is, if you see that this limitless consciousness is I, that recognition eliminates all the limitations from consciousness. So even that so-called form that it takes on, because it can take any form, that form also dissolves, the vritti dissolves, and that you merge in that big I.
Yeah, it's clear to a great extent. Thank you so much.
But let's get some more clarity. I will just check with Nana also. What what all qualifies the Akhandakara Vritti? But from my understanding, I think all of these, all the Mahavakyas would qualify. Even the thing that Atma is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, just those words are, they can, um, it can take.
I think that shloka, Purnavadam, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate,
Yeah,
Purnasya Purnamadaya, that goes very well with this
also,
Akhandakara Vritti.
also very right. And all the vrittis that we've learned in Atma Bodha, all those that we learned in the Upanishad Ratnakaram, all of them, they're only pointing towards the Atma. They're all Shastra Pramanas, right? They're all pointing towards that one Atma. So any one of them, if we pick up and then meditate, contemplate upon that, ultimately that vritti will dissolve and you remain in that. So the name and form will dissolve, and what remains is just that asti, that existence.
Everything is Atma, right? I mean, everything is involved. So, in that sense, like when it becomes limitless, at the same time, in our thinking, everything has that form and name. So, I eventually, we have to go beyond those boundaries and recognize this is one consciousness that that is what I think. Mm, like you mentioned, like when you do the yagna, that in the end,
The
we
last
threw that.
also you throw.
Yeah, the stick that used the fire
Mm.
is also is finally you put it there. So like that, all the thoughts it resolve in that once you realize it, or that what do you call that, big sepa, or that mm,
Avarana. Shape.
avarana, yeah. Mhm. So that's removed, then it becomes clear. But this orientation is uh, what we have to get through, right?
Yeah, most
Mm.
important is that to change the basic, very basic orientation. And this Brahmaraji, just now you mentioned, no, from form to the dissolve the form, then come to the vrittis, and that also dissolves. So that akhanda infinity we merging happens. This is something so powerful and beautiful. I think I felt, and something we can relate it to that bhutakasha, which is full of the forms, dissolves into the chittakasha, that is all full with vikshepas, that dissolves into chidakasha, and then chidananda rupa shivoham becomes the reality the moment we change the orientation.
Mm.
Actually, these classes, Brahmaraji, how much we thank you of show the gratitude. It is very less. That much powerful the sessions are going on. Whatever we have up till now read and heard and whatever, it is actually solving the puzzle more and more, putting it back into the shape. Thank you so
Actually,
much.
this is a Manana class, no?
That
Yeah.
Nirvana
I think
Shatakam is also one of the best,
Very powerful, yes.
yeah,
where
right.
thought very thoughtful. You can believe Swami, Adi Shankaracharya sang that at the age of 8.
Mm.
Is it's every word of it, uh, i- it's about
But
this Atma.
that also, Dr. Mara, that also used to see all the life we have heard this Nirvana Shatakam. We have revised it also, we have contemplated, but the way the things are, the puzzle and the everything is falling in place due to this manana, it is definitely taking all of us on the another another level only. That is what it's making more and more, like opening up each and every, even this bhutakasha, chidakasha, chittakasha. Theoretically,
Mm.
I must have heard it many times, but see
Yeah,
now how the form, that is bhutakasha, dissolves into the chittakasha, that is vikshep, all the thought or vrittis.
it's
That
true, like whatever you say, I completely agree with you. But my experience was like in the last 2 months, I was away, and how Maya can distract you from all this, and then you have to pull yourself back into this. It is a lot of effort to put in. I said I have to attend this, I have to do this, but there is 100 different reasons we can give not to do this. But then again, that one thing centered, and I really like this group, and that even though I haven't been that 2 months, constantly thinking about it, like, oh, I'm missing it, I'm missing it, feeling bad about it. Kind of finally, when I got back, I'm able to attend. But Believe me, it's just a lot of distractions that takes away from this part. But I think every one of us pulling each other. I hope that
Yeah.
Your
keeping in
love
this
for
path.
knowledge pulled you.
That is the
Your
it,
power
love
of
for
it
yeah.
knowledge.
it's
I,
it's true, but then again, definitely, that really, that thought is always hanging in my head. I am not doing it, I have to do it. Um and then the thought of Krishna and uh, this God, you know uh, we think in, the God is like somewhere in your mind. You do it like that. Doing it. So really, really nice to hear from all of you.
this is a combination of the adrishta phala of each one of you. It is not anyone's doing, or no one can take the benefit of credit for this. It is the adrishta phala of each one of us that has actually brought us to this place. And
Yeah.
it is mental discipline. If you remember the Shruti Parayanas, now whatever Gurudev, whatever we're doing in the art of living
Mm.
is making so much sense. I had so many questions. I said, when Gurudev knows, when we know knowledge is the only way to liberation, why are we doing these homas? Why are we doing the japas? Why are we doing so much of so many other things? I mean, there are myriad. There are some 52 different courses in the art of living, 52 or even more. They keep going on, increasing. So I was just wondering, I was so confused. I said, where is it? What is the path? So now everything comes into perspective. It's so clear now that everybody is in a different level of evolution, and compassionate as he is, the teacher, Gurudev has kept it open for everyone. So for people who are at different levels, he has given them that, and like the Shruti Parayanas, they will just follow what the teacher says with commitment. And once they achieve a certain level of mental discipline, then when they are ready for the knowledge aspect is opened up for them. And that is exactly what I see this group has formed, is because for each one of us, we must have reached that level of mental discipline, which is why we have been gifted this. So I think each one of us is contributing to this space, and we should all feel grateful for that. Very true.
So to say that akhanda akara vritti, it is gained in every birth. We gain it. We earn it by following the spiritual paths. So uh, it is that vritti everyone doesn't has. uh, what I understood,
No, in
like I
order for
read.
you to get the Akhandakara Vritti, you have to come to the Shastra, isn't it?
Yeah. So everyone doesn't has that vritti. Only the people who are in the spiritual
Exposed to the
knowledge of
knowledge. Yeah,
uh,
right,
so that those people would be having this vritti.
correct.
Yeah.
The Vritti may be there, but the person getting exposed to it, he gets exposed to it only through the teacher, through the Shastra, through Pramana.
Shastra.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we'll do today, I will post now, it's beyond time. So we'll close here today, but I will post let's revisit Nirvana Shatakam and the Brahma Jnana Vali Mala. I know Dr. Savita listens to that religiously. We'll listen to that today, and let's uh, revel in that space. And I'm just wondering, after having learned all of this, maybe it's only a suggestion from my side. It might take 5 minutes probably. So either at the beginning or at the end of the session, how about us just closing the session by listening to this Brahmajnana Vali Mala, so that
Yes,
that will take us to a contemplative mode.
yes, yes. And the Nirvan
And
Shatakam,
I
alternately
think
also we can do, or for a period of time Brahmajnanavali Mala, then again, like it
Yeah.
is a very beautiful suggestion. Let's follow it from today itself. No problem.
Yeah, I think in the end we can listen because some people join late, so they'll
Correct.
miss it.
So that
we'll,
is true.
yeah.
So shall we begin today? I know it is beyond time. I will
Yes,
play
yes,
it.
yes, yes.
Let's just listen to it and then we'll close. Huh? I will chant Om Loka Samasta and then I'll play that.
Thank you.
And that dambha and that all that those qualities,
Adam
please.
Vikvam. Yeah.
Please.
Yes. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Just stay on. I will share the Brahmajnanavali Mala.
सकृच्छ्रवणमात्रेण ब्रह्मज्ञानं यतो भवेत् ब्रह्मज्ञानावलिमाला सर्वेषां मोक्षसिद्धये सर्वेषां मोक्षसिद्धये सर्वेषां मोक्षसिद्धये अत ब्रह्मज्ञानावलिमाला असङ्गोऽहम् असङ्गोऽहम् असङ्गोऽहं पुनः पुनः सच्चिदानन्दरूपोऽहम् अहमेवाहं मौययः नित्यशुद्धविमुक्तोऽहम् निराकारोऽहं मौययः भूमानन्दस्वरूपोऽहम् अहमेवाहं मौययः नित्योऽहं निरवध्योऽहम् निराकारोऽहमच्युतः परमानन्दरूपोऽहम् प्रकृत्यां द्वौ पदार्थौ स्तः परस्परं विलक्षणौ दृग्ब्रह्म दृश्यं मायेति सर्ववेदान्तडिण्डिमः अहं साक्षीति यो विद्यात् विविच्यैवं पुनः पुनः स एव मुक्तः सो विद्वान् इति वेदान्तडिण्डिमः घटकुड्यादिकं सर्वम् मृत्तिकामात्रमेव च तद्वद्ब्रह्म जगत्सर्वम् इति वेदान्तडिण्डिमः ब्रह्म सत्यं जगन्मिथ्या जीवो ब्रह्मैव नापरः अनेन वेद्यं सच्छास्त्रम् इति वेदान्तडिण्डिमः अन्तर्ज्योतिर्बहिर्ज्योतिः प्रत्यग्ज्योतिः परात्पर ज्योतिर्ज्योतिः स्वयं ज्योतिर् आत्मज्योतिः शिवोऽस्म्यहम्